Again, do you have any questions for me? No? Right, so I'll set up the camera and then I'll move to the table and do the demo for the two-piece sleeve. All right? Okay, I'll be with you in a little bit. Again, I have my draft and I'm going to cut my sleeve, my finalized sleeve, okay? And divide my sleeve into landmarks, basically. When you come to the elbow dart, you will need to fold your dart before you cut. This way, this is easier to understand. Okay, so I folded and creased and folded and creased, and this should look like the drawing that you have on your book, okay? And then I'm going to fold the rest of the sleeve down and up from there, okay? So this is figure 18.0.12 in the book, right? While my piece is like this, I am going to mark the curve of the underarm seam on my sleeve. All the way where it ends on the sleeve cap. Okay, and also my notches. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. Okay, so if I open it, I have the shape. All right. The other thing I need to do is to take my ruler and look for a line that will be perpendicular to my crease and 1.25 inches wide. So I'm gonna come here and find 1.25 inches perpendicular to my folded crease and slide my ruler until it hits the folded part, and then when I come to 1.25 inches, I'll mark a point. This point will be called point Y. And I am going to do the same thing on the other side. So I'll be perpendicular to my crease. I'll slide my ruler until I find the point that's 1.25 inches wide, and then I will mark that point. And I can draw that line too. Clear so far? So this point is going to be called point Y and point Y over here. All right, and I trace the shape of the curve, the underarm curve. Right, once I have that, I will next going to divide the elbow line in half on both sides. Okay, and also I will do the same thing for the hemline. All right. So I'll find the center point of the elbow and I'll crease, and this is the point, and I'll do the same thing on the other side. So that I find the center point, which is basically where the dart tip is. Okay. And then at the hemline, I'll do the same thing. So I'm going to fold it, and this is the center of the hemline, and then I am going to quarter this part here and quarter this part over here and mark it. Okay. After that, I will this point over here is going to be called point X, where the curve hits the arm sleeve cap. Okay. And I am going to now connect these points together. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to connect from X to the biceps line to the middle of the elbow to the middle of the wrist, or like the quarter of the wrist. Following so far? All right. After doing this, I will start drawing another line like parallel, but not exactly like at the same amount. So I will mark a point over here that's 1 inch away from this point. And it should be 1 inch on both dart legs. Okay, and also this point over here is going to be connected to point Y. So this is Y, and also Y for the front is here. And then this one over here is going to be connected to a point that is 3/4 of an inch out from the quarter point of the sleeve. So I'm gonna mark first the 3/4, and then I will connect this to the second dart leg. Clear? At the elbow in the front, and here I did 1 inch. Over here it's 3/4. So I'll mark the 3/4 point first, and then I will mark 3/4 at the hemline, and then I'll connect the 2 points to each other, and then I'll connect it up to the Y point. So all of this were just planning things. Now this section over here and this section over here, basically we don't need them anymore, all right? I am going to draw a second line that is second. I will take this part out first, so that what I'm looking at makes sense to my brain too. Okay. So these sections are unneeded anymore. Okay, and this is the part that I'm going to work with from now on. I am going to mark 1.25 inches in from the edge, or I can actually do this. So this should be 1.25 inches. No, it's more. So at the hemline, I'm going to mark 3/4 in over here, and also 3/4 in over here from that line. At the elbow, I will mark 1.25 inches. That doesn't make sense. Okay. 1 inch. basically we're mirroring this measurement. So over here, I'm going to follow, fold at this line and mark. So this is 1 inch and this is 1 inch and this is 3/4 and this is 3/4. What she's saying about doing 1.25 inches is a little bit confusing. And then I am going to mark 1.5 inches above and below the remnant of the elbow dart. So I'm gonna mark 1.5 inches above and 1.5 inches below. And that's because I'm going to ease between these two marks. All right. Now, there is a point Z, which is the mirror of point Y. Okay, so point Y was at the edge and the mirror of it is called point Z at the curve. Right, so I am going to mark this as Z, right? And Y is on the outside. And then this part over here is going to be eased. This part will be left alone. And I am going to connect from Z to the mirrored line over here, right, to the mirrored line or the 3/4 line in the on the hemline. Is it clear or confusing? Hello? Anybody? Is anybody there?
Yes.
Okay. And then I am going to connect Z to the mirrored point at the elbow to the mirrored point at the hemline. Right? So I have my shapes. This part in the middle is basically the underseam, not the underseam, the undersleeve, right? So the big part, the full part is the top sleeve, and the part in the middle is the undersleeve, okay? One thing I want to mark also is the green line for that piece. So I planned all my pieces. I am going to shade the part that will be my undersleeve. Okay. So this is my undersleeve. You see the shape? And I'm going to trace this part for my undersleeve. The big piece will be my top sleeve. So this sleeve will have two pieces. One is an undersleeve and the other one is a top sleeve. And I'll add seam allowance to that, okay? So I'm going to trace just this piece. Do you see that? No, okay, you don't. Right, so that part in the middle will be traced as the undersleeve, and then the full piece will be the top sleeve. And then you're going to add seam allowance to them and mark your notches. Okay? Is that clear or is it difficult?
It's clear.
Huh?
Clear. Clear.
All right, shall we take some time and work on it? And if you have any difficulty, you can ask me. You know how to trace the second piece out of this one, right? Or shall I do it on camera?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna grab another piece of paper and I'll transfer the information from. put this here. First, I'll start with a green line. And then I'll align the green line of the sleeve with this green line that I'm going to draw, and then I'm going to trace the under sleeve. I'm going to align my piece with the green line that I just drew and hold it in place using pins. And with the tracing wheel, I'll trace the curves, and then I will connect basically the areas that are marked with my push pins. Okay, so I trace this curve. Also, what I need to mark over here is like the notches. So an inch and a half above and an inch and a half below the elbow is an amount that I need to mark 1 inch and a half, and there will be a notch in here. And an inch and a half and a notch right there. And I'll mark these notches on my piece. And that's for the A's, okay? I can remove my piece and then connect the dots, basically, right? Here. area that I need. Right, you see the shape, very similar to what you see in your book. And then over here, I'm going to draw the curvature with the French curve. All right, so this is the shape. The hem allowance for this shape is half an inch, sorry, 1 inch. Okay. And then half an inch all around, so you will add your seam allowance. Okay, and then I'll have my notches indicated. When you come to areas where there are pointy parts like this, you will like reduce the amount of your seam allowance to half an inch. Okay, so I'll just mark that the height of this area is just half an inch above the pointy part. Okay, and I'll do the same thing on the other side. Another way of like knowing exactly the right shape for your corners or angles like this is you can fold back your seam allowance and cut your seam allowance accordingly. Okay. Corners like this and areas like this needs to be blended, and you will blend your seam allowance also. Okay, and so at the elbow, I'm going to blend the line so that I don't have harsh angles. All right, so over here, what I was talking about, so you exactly if I want. So for pointy areas like this, if I fold my pattern on my seam line, okay, I can actually cut the seam allowance this way. All right, and it will reduce the amount of seam allowance above. So instead of having this pointy part like excess seam allowance, it's basically taking the same shape as if I am sewing my garment. Okay, and I can do the same thing on this side too. So I'm gonna fold this and cut on the line. And if I do the same thing with the curved line, so I'll fold it and then cut the straight line, it will give me the exact shape of the fabric when I sew the seam. And that will be the shape of that corner. Okay. It's here, and I am going to cut off the and that gave me the shape. And then I'm going to cut on the seam allowance line. Okay. So this is my under sleeve piece. Here is my grain line. I have my notches for the elbow. I have my hem allowance, which is 1 inch. And I curved wherever there is a harsh angle, and I also shaped the corners on the top. Any questions regarding this? Or done? Or you can follow that and like replicate it. For the top sleeve, you're basically going to take this top part, put it on another piece of paper, add your seam allowance. Any areas where there are harsh corners, you will blend the arm, the elbow area over here. You're gonna blend over here. You're going to add seam allowance. The hem allowance is 1 inch, very similar to what I did with the under seams. They are going to be attached to each other. All right. So the hem allowance for both needs to be the same. Okay, 1/2 inch all around, except the hem will be 1 inch. And the way these two are going to be attached to each other, it's going to be attached on this seam from both sides. You will run a gathering stitch where the notches are so that you can adjust the size of the back under seam to each other. Okay? Any questions? Questions?
Nope.
No? Good. Is it easy to follow? Is it making sense?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, so I am going to do something a little bit unconventional, I guess. I will explain the idea of the facings and linings, and we can go to the book. I think it's in the appendix section of the book in the back. Let's take a little bit of a break and then we can regroup in 10 minutes. So it's 12:10. We can regroup again about 12:21. Okay. I'll pause the situation. Now I am going to go over the lining / facing, right? In the book, the only reference to this part is on page 482 and page 483. Okay, so it tells you basically what are the pieces that you're going to create to create a full jacket pattern. Okay, so I'm gonna change the camera to my personal like camera that's looking at me right now. Can you see me? No. All right, you see me? Are you all back?
Yes.
Okay. So in the book on page 482, it shows you what are the layers that goes into jackets. Okay, right? So you can have lining, you can have facing, can have underlining, interlining, based on the how heavy you want your jacket to be, how much body you want to add to your jacket, right? Our jacket that we're doing is gonna have the jacket shell, so the external layer of the jacket, and an internal layer of the jacket, and that internal layer of the jacket is going to be made out of the facing, and the facing is the part that's going to clean up the like the front edge of the jacket, all right? You can interface the area around the shoulder because that gives body and shape to the jacket. You can do the same thing on the upper part of the back and around the armholes. And you can also interface the hemline. All of this gives like nice and crisp body to the jacket, all right? So the jacket on the outside, you will have your panels and your sleeve, the top sleeve and the under sleeve, and the panels that make up the jacket front bodice and back bodice with any princess panels that you created on the side. Okay, on the inside, you will have a second jacket basically that is made out of the facing for the back neckline and the front facing. You are going to have the top collar attached to that jacket, and you're going to have your panels plus the back made out of a lining fabric. So the top collar, and the facing are fashion fabric, and then and the back neckline facing also is fashion fabric, and then the lining is lining fabric, and the shell is made out of the fashion fabric also. These are the pieces over here. So also the other pieces that you will have is the back neck facing over here. And you're gonna have your top collar, all right? The under collar can be cut on bias, and it's two pieces attached to each other at the center back seam. Or it can be one piece, and in this case also you are going to cut it on grain. What you see over here that looks like a banana, that's a collar stand that we're not like going to do for our jacket. All right, but these are basically the classic pieces that go into a jacket. How to draft these pieces is in the pattern making book. Does everybody have the pattern making book? And please reply.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody doesn't have the pattern making book? No, you're good, you're all good to go. Okay, so I am going to share my screen so that I can go over the instructions for the lining and facing in the pattern making book. All right, so you will find it on page 481. Okay. So after you create all your pattern pieces, in our situation, for example, I have my draping here, right? So I have the front panel that has the lapel, and then I have three panels that are going basically from like front princess to back princess, and then I have the back piece. You have the option of following the same shape. Do you see my cursor on the screen?
Yep.
Okay, so you have the option of either creating the facing up to the mid shoulder point. Okay, and then in this case, the rest of the piece will be lining. Let me see if I can annotate on the screen so that I can like draw what I'm talking about. Okay, yes, I can. All right, great. Okay, so in this case, your facing can be on this line. This grid so that it's differentiated, okay? So your facing can be this section and ending on the mid shoulder point, or you can follow the same shape as your front panel. So it can look like your front panel. In my case, it looks something like this. So it's doing this situation. Right, so I will use my, like if I'm doing the facing pattern for my jacket, I will use my front panel as my facing panel, and I will do the modifications to it. Okay, is this clear? All right, this part over here is going to be lining. This part is going to be lining. This part is going to be lining, except for where you see the dashed line, that's called the back neck facing. All right. So the inner structure of the jacket will be facings attached to linings, attached to the top collar. And the shell itself will be the front side panels and the sleeve. So you are going to have two basically different jackets that are going to be attached to each other at certain points. If you don't want to attach the collar, the under collar to the shell and the top collar to the facing / lining jacket, you can assemble the collar and sandwich it between the neckline of the shell and the neckline of the lining / facing jacket. Is this idea clear, or is it too confusing? Hello?
It's clear.
Okay, all right. So, how are you going to do your lining patterns? Again, the seam that's going to be between the facing and the lining can be following your design detail, or it can go to the mid shoulder point and then the rest of the shoulder. So this whole section will be made out of lining, and this whole section, so this section over here is going to be made out of the fashion fabric and interfacing. Okay. Any facing needs to be interfaced, and especially in the case of the jacket, you need all the structure that you can give to your fabric. So definitely the back neck facing will be interfaced, and also the front facing that carries the part of the lapel that's going to show to the outside is part of the facing, not part of the jacket shell. So that will be interfaced too. Right. Another thing that you will have to do is you are going to shorten the lining pattern compared to the jacket shell pattern. So over here, what's shown is you're going to go up by 1.5 inches. I feel like 1.5 inches is too much, so 1 inch is more than enough, right? So the lining / facing pattern is going to be about 1 inch hemline, 1 inch shorter. All right. What else do we need to do? You will create your facing pattern parallel to your back neckline. All right. And in case of you're going to use your whole back pattern as your lining in this case. So you're going to create this line, and then you're going to attach the facing to the lining. And the rest of the piece is going to follow the same shape as your panel for the center back, right? It's just going to be shorter for the line. All right? Any questions regarding this? Hello?
No.
Clear, or do I need to explain anything any further?
Clear to me.
What?
It's clear to me.
Okay, all right, cool. Okay, cool. All right, so I'm gonna move on to the next section. I'll remove all these marks and then I'll move on to the next page. So in this next page, it's basically explaining if you're going to go to the mid shoulder point, how you are going to trace your facing part, okay? And how you will create the facing for the back neckline. On the peripheral, or like on the princess section, you will have to do some changes as the lining will be a little bit bigger than the shell, right? So the only part, if you're going to follow the same shape as your garment, what you're going to do at the shoulder tip, you will extend your shoulder line by 1/2 inch, right? And what you see on figure 3 over here, basically as if they took the shoulder dart of the seam between the back neck facing and the lining, right? So in your case, if you're just going to use the same shape as your drape, and if you don't have this dart, you don't have to worry about this part, right? You will just create the shape for your back neck facing, and you're going to extract it and on another piece that of paper that's folded. In the center of the back lining, there is what's called an action pleat, right? It is a pleat that is created in the back, kind of at the same level where your shoulder blade is, and that is to allow for the movement. Let me grab my jacket and I will be able to show you how it looks like in the garment. Okay, so this is an action pleat. You see my, I'll stop sharing so that it goes back to my right. Right, so this is what's called the action pleat. So at the center back, you will create an action pleat that starts below the back neck facing and ends at 0 at the hemline. Okay, so that action pleat should be part of your pattern. Okay, I'm gonna go back and share my screen. All right, so yeah, so this is the action pleat pattern drafting that you're going to follow. All right, what else what other changes they need to make around the armhole? You are going to raise the armhole so that the lining sleeve is inside the jacket sleeve. All right, so you're going to raise the armhole up by 1/2 inch and extend it out by 1/4 inch. And you're going to do this for both the front and the back, right? In the case that you don't have a side seam, How are you going to achieve this? You are going to raise the armhole, that's not a problem because you have an armhole anyway. And then you can, like the extension, maybe you can do it, you can either ignore the extension or you can do it by cutting the pattern piece or where the side seam is and separating that part by 1/4 of an inch on each side. Okay, so in this case, you will add that amount. Again, these adjustments so that the lining slash facing jacket is inside the shell jacket. Right, so we separate them a little bit from each other. And in this case, the side seam will be basically going back to 0 at the lining. The lining hem would be 1 inch shorter than the shell hem, right? So action theta center back, shoulder tip extended 1/2 inch. Armhole is extended out 1/4 and raised up 1/2 inch. All right, so all these things you need to create based on the shape of your pattern. And because we did changes to the armhole and the shoulder tip, this means that we need to transfer the same changes to our sleeves. Right, so if I extend the shoulder tip 1/2 inch, I need to lower the sleeve cap by the same 1/2 inch, right? If I raise the armhole up 1/2 inch and extended it 1/4 up out, I need to do the same thing to the biceps line because this is where these two pattern pieces meet. So you're going to also raise up the biceps line by 1/2 and extend it out by 1/4 and lower the sleeve cap by the 1/2 that you extended the shoulder tip by. All right, and also the sleeve will be 1 inch shorter than the shell sleeve. All right, when so the points of connection between these two pieces is the outer, like more or less the outline, the hemline, my jacket collar is sandwiched between the necklines of both the shell and the lining slash facing jacket, all right? So if I pull them away from each other, I cannot pull the collar, it is sandwiched between the two layers. But I can pull the two layers away from each other. Another point of connection between both of them is again the hemline. So the hemline of the lining is attached to the hemline of the jacket, and that's one of the tricky parts of assembling the jacket. And the other thing is that's why we do the lining a little bit shorter so that it doesn't show from behind the jacket. And both of them are attached to each other at the hemline. But I can pull them apart so I can have like the sleeves away from each other. Okay. And the other piece that I cannot like pull apart because it's sandwiched between both is the collar, all right? Over here, here's the facing and here is the jacket. And also here's the facing and here's the jacket on the other side. And in my case, I have cut the under collar on bias, right? And it is interfaced. And the top collar doesn't have the interfacing. And again, the collar, like I assembled the collar together and then I attached it to the neckline of the jacket. So it's sandwiched between the jacket and the shell. I can grab it and show it to you. So it is attached between these two. And it's not gonna move or go anywhere. Right? Any questions so far?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right, I basically kind of explained what I wanted to go over today. So the rest of the time you can be working on maybe transferring your patterns or drafting your sleeves or something like that. Or if you have any questions, I'll be here to answer any questions that you might have. So shall I ask one by one? Stop.